welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the iHeartRadio network, the number one network in the United States of America. And also Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe according to Big C and his good old boys down south. And we trust the vote, Big C. And I want to say also thank you so much to Latin America. So bienvenidos to Latin Americans listening to Charlton and Big C Sports, and of course across the pond in London, England, and Paris, France. And this, the good old boys in Canada, I really appreciate your love, Canada. Now that I stopped singing your national anthem, I don't get the hate mail anymore, so I appreciate it very much. But there's no one I love more than the land of the free and the home of the brave. Big C, how's it going for you good old boys down south, Big C?
Well, we're talking the South is in a buzz right now. You got the NFC Championship game being played at the Georgia Dome, Charlton.
Oh, yeah.
For the second time in 4 years. And, the Atlanta Falcons, are kind of underdog, but they're still a favorite, when you look at it. Matt Ryan, people talk about him, potential MVP, so that has a lot of buzz going on. But Charlton, there are tickets going as high as $7,000 for this game. So
$7,000?
People are $7,000 for it. This is excitement.
How would you know, Big C? You haven't paid for a ticket in 40 years, so how would you know how much the tickets cost?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Fans are excited. They're willing to pay it.
Oh, okay.
I can let them walk in with me for free.
Yeah. That's so funny, Big C. I just want to say today is it is January the 18th, 2017, and I'm telling you, Big C, there's so much rain out here in California. No one's talking about the drought. I don't know how the good old boys do it up in Seattle, Washington, where it rains like this all the time, but we've had so much of a drought in California over the last 3 years. Now they're saying the drought is about 90% solved, Big C, because all the reservoirs, not only are they full, but they're overflowing. It reminds me that time I came down south and hung out with you good old boys, and you guys had the moonshine going, Big C. That thing was overflowing those kennels down south, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, every now and then, Charlie, we have to turn off the tap.
Yeah.
We have to turn it off. We just let it run, but we like to be generous and share the knowledge with others.
Yeah.
So if we can make the neighborhood relax and feel in a good way, Charlie, we're all about doing that. So, we let the moonshine flow.
That's funny. When I was a little boy, we used to always drink out of the water hose, and I remember this one time, and I was just out watering my front lawn, and this girl came by, maybe 10 years old, and I was drinking water out of the water hose. It was hot, about 100 degrees in California, and said, "Ooh, you can't drink out of that water hose." And I said, "Why not?" She said, "You're going to get sick." And I said, "You can't get sick drinking out of a water hose because we've been doing it all our lives." Well, funny story, I took a little glass of mason jar of moonshine, gave it to some of my friends in Silicon Valley. Some of the snooty women were like, "You can't drink out of a mason jar." They thought I had to have a certain kind of glass, Big C. That shows you how snooty some of the women are in California. Your thoughts, Big C? Yeah. Yeah.
Hits the back of that throat.
Yeah, that's funny. But you ever meet someone and I'm not making fun of anybody, but there are some classes of women or people, they'll say, "I can only drink red wine from a red wine glass. I can only drink white wine from a white wine glass." And my good old boys show up with moonshine and mason jars, and they just had a fit, Big C. I thought that was a cultural shock, Big C. Yeah.
Yeah. I took that same scotch bottle, poured that scotch out, put a cheap brand of scotch in.
Yeah.
And they took a drink of it, so they're like, that's my drink.
Yeah.
All it was the bottle that camouflage.
Yeah, they did a study like that. I think it was the high lifestyle in New York City, and these people that buy these $1 million plus homes, and they had them do a party, and they had this taste testing going on, and they all wanted some Cristal or some Dom Perignon. They took some regular $90 wine bottles and put some $5 wines in them, and people swore that the $5 wine tastes good because it came out of a $90 wine bottle. I just think that's crazy, Big C. And speaking of good things, this segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive one, tell them that Charlton and Big C Central. You know, Big C, I was telling you yesterday, Madison Bumgarner is driving his Escalade around in the mud on TV, but his is not an Escalade, it's a Ford, Big C. So I know, I just thought that was so funny that everybody is talking about keeping their cars dirty now. Every time you get gas in California, now we're in drought country, Big C, they always ask if you want a car wash. Does that make any sense? You want to wash your car in the drought, Big C, any more than you want to wash yours in the mud all the time, Big C?
It's all about everything for you people out there on the West Coast.
Yeah.
It's about a lot of flash and flare. You know,
yeah.
You think if you look good, you're doing good. But, you know, so many people are living behind that facade. You know, that's why I try to keep it real.
Yeah.
And just go around all natural. And sometimes I don't even get dressed during the day.
Well, that's TMI, Big C. That's TMI for us, Big C.
But, you know, you let the car be what the car is. That car on the inside is pristine. You know, got a little wild game smell in it.
Yeah.
You know, on the outside we can tell this because we got that nice stereo system. You know, the only thing that I hate about the car, Charlton,
yeah,
is that I'm not sitting in the back seat watching the DVDs and everybody else.
Yeah, everybody else is. Well, I'm glad that you don't watch the DVDs when you're driving, Big C. That at least gives a lot of people comfort down in the South, Big C. But just to mention some of the great things coming up this weekend, of course, we have NBA basketball here in Sacramento tonight, downtown Sacramento. The Indiana Pacers are taking on the Sacramento Kings in their new arena. They got to start winning games, though. I think more often they need to drive the ball down inside the paint and quit taking three-point baskets. They'll do a lot better job that way. But something I want to bring up as we talk about the world of sports, today we have this, baseball is trying to pay homage to some of their best players and actually inducting these guys into the Hall of Fame, or at least putting them up for it. You have Pudge Rodriguez, Jeff Bagwell, and also Ivan Rodriguez. I just want to get your thoughts. Again, no talk of Barry Bonds and no talk of the great Roger Clemens, even though those guys are better than the three that got put in, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, actually, Tim Raines got in also, Charlton. He was one of the three when you think about it. Bagwell played with Houston. You know, Pudge Rodriguez played with Texas, and Tim Raines played with the former Montreal Expos.
Yeah.
But, you know, when you look at the balloting, this is Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds' fifth year being eligible for the Hall of Fame. And both of them got in the mid-50% of the votes that's needed. And people want to talk about, say, well, you know, they were doing that drug steroid era.
Yeah.
Baseball has always had a drug era.
Yeah.
Okay, Charlton?
Yeah.
It just all depends on the type of drug that is used. But, you know, to keep players out of the game purely for performing is wrong, okay?
Yeah.
You know, it's like keeping Pete Rose out of the Hall of Fame because he bet on baseball, okay? Pete Rose hit baseballs.
Yeah.
Okay? When he was hitting baseball, whether he was betting on them or not, he still made contact.
Still had to hit them.
So you still can't discount his 4,000+ hits, Charlton,
Yeah.
that he had. His gold gloves, his all-star appearances, Charlton, his World Series rings. You can't take that away.
No.
People want us to be so, you know, dramatic about having control over an athlete's life. And we talk about this all the time. We have reporters who don't play the game. And when you think about the baseball writers, there's about 454,
Yeah.
455 writers who dictate someone's history, whether they deserve to be at a certain echelon or not in sports. And you're going to tell me what a guy does between the strikes does not matter, Charlton. You can't. You're lying to yourself and you're lying to the American and world public. When you want to sit there and play God over a guy who went out and sacrificed his body,
Yeah.
game in and game out, and you're saying, well, he's not deserving. I don't care if Barry Bonds was sitting there shooting up at home plate or whatever they allege that he did, okay?
Yeah.
He still hit the baseball.
Yeah.
You know, he wasn't injecting his eyes, Charlton. You know, his reflexes were just extra extraordinary. So, by Babe Ruth hitting 714 home runs, was he clean? Does anybody know? No, they don't, Charlton.
Yeah.
But they just say he was exceptional. Barry Bonds was exceptional. Hank Aaron hit 755, Charlton. No one said Hank did anything. Hank was exceptional.
Yeah.
Barry Bonds hit the baseball like no other human being ever, Charlton. And no one will ever hit the ball like Barry Bonds. But I think the greatest feat with Barry Bonds, Charlton, is the amount of times that the bat was taken out of his hand.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? Barry Bonds has been walked in baseball more than anybody else in history. You talk
Yeah.
The reporters don't talk about that. How many times he was robbed of not having an opportunity to hit home run. He would hit 1,000 of them, Dalton.
Yeah.
If you count the number of times and his home run percentage at that, he would have hit over 1,000 home runs if he wasn't intentionally walked so many times in his career. But I think it's totally wrong of these reporters in every sport: football, basketball, baseball, track and field. Let your peers have votes, Charlton.
Yeah.
Your peers should account for 50% of the votes in all sports. You got your old-timers committee, you got your current players. You should have a percentage that can be accountable for votes and particularly players going into the Hall of Fame. Because when you look at the amount of players in Major League Baseball,
yeah,
and only 3 players can get in a class, at least the NFL has a standard that it has to be at least 5 or 6. Okay?
Yeah, that makes sense.
That standard.
That makes sense.
And when you look at baseball, when you look at players on the field, it's almost equal to the number of players on a football field at the same time.
Yeah, it's starting to seem like it, Big C. Go ahead, Big C. Go ahead.
And you can only get 2 to 3 players into the Hall a year.
Yeah. Well, we know sometimes there's so much control over certain players, and sometimes it's almost like a personal thing because, Bonds wasn't well liked, and because he was focused, and as an African American, he was even more unpopular. Even though people loved to watch him hit the ball, they didn't like the fact that he had a truculent attitude, a lot like what Mike Ditka does to people, even though he's a football coach. But when you think about it, no one punishes the organizations that do the testing. And he never tested positive for anything. He just used a substance. I mean, I wasn't there. I don't know. You know the thing. In sports, a lot of people, they do what they have to do. But if you're not good at the media, they have a way to get him back at you, Big C. And that's called not putting in the Hall of Fame. Yeah.
Look at it from this perspective. What team in professional sports does not administer drugs to its players? Okay?
Wow.
Let's wipe the slate right there. What team in professional sports does not administer drugs to its players? We all saw the movie North Dallas 40.
Oh, yeah.
Years ago.
Nick Nolte, yeah.
We all saw the movie Concussions. There's openly being administered drugs, narcotics to the players by the teams.
Yeah.
And that's okay, that's legal. But if a player goes out and smokes some marijuana, he's given a 4-game suspension.
Yeah.
But if a team shoots him up with cortisone or cocaine to numb the pain, it's okay, it's legal. But if he goes out and snorts some cocaine, he can get a 6-game suspension. So it's okay if the team administers narcotics to him that will make him dependent upon him. But he can't go out and get recreational use.
Well, what was that drug that the radio guy, Rush Limbaugh, the guy that's always, putting down Oxycontin?
Rush Limbaugh and Jim Irsay.
Okay, now.
Utilizing Oxycontin.
Now,
thousands of dollars worth of Oxycontin at a time.
Now, Rush Limbaugh, if you've seen the size of Rush Limbaugh, I doubt if he could make it around the bases, Big C. Just if he had to, maybe he could walk, but I doubt if he could run around the bases. But where does he get the Oxycontin? He didn't play sports, Big C.
He was on Monday Night Football talking for a couple of
Yeah, they kicked him off, though.
And he fired for making racial comments.
Yeah.
On the broadcast, on a live broadcast, he's making racial comments versus African-American players. Let people know how much of a bigot that, Rush Limbaugh was, and still is. But you think about it. Here's a guy who's been convicted. He's technically a drug felon. Rush Limbaugh. He's been convicted. But it's okay because it's Rush Limbaugh. But you let an African-American personality get convicted of that same type of drug usage, they lose their career. Rush Limbaugh was embraced for being a drug addict, just like Tim Irsay, the owner of the Indianapolis Colts, when he was caught a year and a half ago, Charlton, with $27,000 of illegal Oxycontin.
Well, what do you need that much for? Why do you even need that much Oxycontin, Big C?
Well, I guess he was going to the state fair to hand it out as samples. No sane individual could use it.
That's funny. I was telling you, Lester Holt was doing a program here in Sacramento, and it's called All Across America. He was just here, I believe it was here Monday or Tuesday, and just down there in Sacramento watching him. Man, what a great voice Lester Holt has. He's actually a good old boy from Northern California up here in Sacramento, Rancho Cordova. But they're going around talking to America about what makes America great. And everybody concedes that sports is the equalizer. We don't go to the same churches in America, and we don't have the same faiths. Everything about America is diversity, and I think that's a good thing. But everybody's so separate at times. But when it comes to sports, people can forgive their transgressions, their misgivings, and sometimes even their verbal assaults on other people. And sports has a way of galvanizing people. And I want to bring that up as I say this segment is sponsored by the California Lottery. What can a buck do for you? Tonight's Powerball and Mega Million, they're up around over $100 million, Big C. Go ahead and buy a ticket, and a lot of that money goes to help the schools. In fact, Big C, I think you could even wash your car if you bought a lotto ticket, Big C. Your thoughts?
I just buy a car, but it's still the car wash.
Yeah.
I'll wash everybody else's car.
Yeah.
When you talk about sports galvanizing, and sports around the world are the largest cathedrals. The sporting arenas are the largest cathedrals of prayer in the world.
I agree.
So when you think about it, whether you're in a hockey arena, whether you're in a soccer stadium, whether you're in a football stadium, basketball arena, chocolate, baseball stadium, what do you see all the fans doing? They got their hands in front of their face together and praying for something good to happen for their team. So sports, when you talk about sports and religion, it's synonymous because people are in these arenas praying for their teams, for themselves, for their communities. So, when we talk about sports bringing everything together, Charlton, if you look at Sunday in the church, in the South, Charlton, every church is out by 12:30.
Yeah.
Why? Because kickoff's at 1. During football season, all churches end by 12:30. So kickoff is at 1. And no preacher wants to have his tires punctured.
I'm sure you can't confirm or deny if you've ever seen that happen, Big C, but that's so funny. But we're talking about the Hall of Fame and just looking around the world of baseball and had so much success. A lot of these great guys, and Barry Bonds, whether you like him or not, or even Pete Rose, taking it out on them not getting to the Hall of Fame is just kind of crazy. I also want to acknowledge a good friend of ours on Twitter, and it's Jose Bautista. He agreed to an $18 million contract with the Toronto Blue Jays, and he's just been a great player with them, and he has a couple of options in that contract as well, and that was reported by the Associated Press. And Bautista, he's the one who got sucker punched by the kid from St. Louis, but they're still playing the game, and if that happened in regular society, obviously that'd be someone he would incarcerate. But Bautista, he's been a great player too. Maybe he'll be someone looking at the Hall of Fame down the road. Also, you look at Texas, and they agreed to a minor league contract with slugger Josh Hamilton, who's 35 years old, with an invitation to spring training, and he's often injured, the 2010 MVP. So money's not really an issue in baseball. When you look at first baseman Will Myers in San Diego, Big C, they finalized a 6-year, $83 million contract, and that's the largest deal in the team's history. And Myers has been eligible for the salary arbitration and receives a $15 million signing bonus. We talk about how much money football players make. Baseball players are making money hand over fist. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, baseball players, Charlton, have always made money since the great Kurt Floyd, made baseball it was the first sport to have free agency.
Yeah.
He lost his all-star career, all-star shortstop with the St. Louis Cardinals for 11 years.
Yeah.
But he challenged baseball's echelon, saying that this is a corrupt, illegal system that you're forcing, and we've talked about this a lot in college sports, Charlton, slavery.
Yeah.
You were enslaving these grown men, saying where they could not work.
Yeah.
And that you own them outright. So free agents did not exist in Major League Baseball until Kurt Floyd.
Yeah.
But he lost his career over there, and a lot of young players today, Charlton, don't recognize who he is. But, they also have the greatest union in all the professional sports. When you think about Major League Baseball,
oh, yeah.
One day in the Major Leagues, Charlton, you qualify for your pitching. Well, it takes 2 years in the NFL as well as in the NBA. One day in Major League Baseball, you qualify for it. So it's been a union that is taking care of their players, but it's a union that playing. He was elected into the Hall of Fame. The only problem about that, Charlton, he was deceased. And many other players we've seen in basketball and football, you elect a player to the Hall of Fame when he's 70, 80 years old. Yes, there's immortality, Charlton, but how much do you enjoy it? It's almost like us once we get old. And we say, okay, we want to enjoy our twilight years walking the beach.
Yeah.
And you're 80 years old and you're walking the beach. You got arthritis. You can't walk that far. Versus when you're 28 years old, Charlton, walking that beach, enjoying the full luster of it.
Yeah.
So allow athletes to enjoy the pinnacle of their lives when they're still young, being elected into a Hall of Fame. Don't wait till a man is 80 years old, 85, or deceased.
Yeah.
Okay, now he's earned it. And especially, Charlton, when there's no film on some of these guys. I look at the Hall of Fame in football every year, even in baseball. When you elect somebody who's been deceased for 20 years, how does anyone know him in the modern era? And we know, like you and the rest of the fans out there, all you know is ESPN.
Yeah. That's so funny, Big Z. It's funny. I also want to thank, the great President Obama had his last press conference today, but he also did something for baseball. Not only did he have the Chicago Cubs there for winning the Big C World Series, that stands for Charlton and Big C Sports, and also Cleveland and Chicago for you good old boys, but he pardoned Giants Hall of Famer Willie McCovey, who'd been pardoned by President Obama on tax evasion charges from 1995, and is one of the president's 64 pardons. And the Major League Slugger was sentenced in June of 1996 to 2 years of probation for evading taxes, or maybe just slipped his mind, but he had made, I think, about $41,000 on some memorabilia, and he didn't declare it. Whatever happened, he tried to be like Donald Trump and not pay, but he needed to know the IRS tax form 1041 before he did that, Big Z. But that's a Hall of Famer. They've also named McCovey Cove after him, and I'm proud of the President Obama for giving him a pardon, because so many people, they brag about not paying taxes and they become the president of the United States, Big C. But guys that maybe make a mistake, because a lot of times they have guys who handle things for them. I'm not making an excuse for Willie McCovey, but he did, he paid up, and he's still going to be a great American citizen. And then we have someone who didn't pay and brags about it, and he's going to be having an inauguration on Friday, Big C. And I just want to bring this up about the great Donald Trump. We're also talking about Martin Luther King holiday. Well, for the Department of Education, he's trying to appoint Betsy DeVos, and she's at the Department of Education. And she was being questioned today, and she said she knew nothing about Pell Grants, and she's never had to take student aid. But she's big in school choice. How are you going to be the Department of Education Secretary if you know nothing about how Pell Grants work, which is how a lot of people go to college, Big C? Your thoughts?
Not only that, Charlton, how does the public school system work? Forget college.
Yeah.
She through the public school system. She knows nothing about how the public school systems operate, Charlton, and all states are different. You think about her in her lifestyle in upper state New York, okay?
Yeah.
Versus someone who lives in West Virginia, just a little south of there, okay?
Yeah.
One of the poorest states in the nation. West Virginia is so sprawled out population-wise, Charlton, you could not take that population area and say we're going to put it on a stipend system.
Yeah.
Because these kids rely on the public school system, Charlton, as many other rural areas. When you look at New Mexico as a state, they rely on the rural school system, Charlton. Even Texas, as big as Texas is, Charlton, when you think about some of those small outpost areas, and especially these schools that have this 8-man football in Texas and Oklahoma and Kansas, they don't have enough populace, Charlton, to be on a stipend program for a school. They rely on the public school system. Alaska, up north, they really rely on it, Charlton, because if you look at the smallness of that countryside up there in the 49th state. So, when you talk about someone, Charlton, who knows nothing about the school system, the public education system, they know about private schools because that's how they spend their lives.
Yeah.
And they say that they can make that work for America. America is in a rude awakening. You have a lot of people in America, Charlton, saying, well, they need to do something about the education. Yes, they do.
Yeah.
It comes down to parenting. Without the public education system, Charlton, where would sports be in America?
Yeah.
Where? What sports team would exist without the public schools, Charlton? And yes, there's a lot of private
Yeah, go ahead, Big C.
Implemented, publicly funded.
Yeah.
All high schools are private in America. I mean, colleges.
Yeah.
But, you know, when you're going to take this away, when you're going to take the grammar school system away from the little kids that are just getting started in kindergarten, Charles, you know, now all of a sudden they got to go through a grant program to get into a kindergarten.
Yeah.
You know, parents now have to get their kids to a certain area because this is the school they have to go to. We're going to lose the public busing, Charles, of students to and from school.
Yeah.
This is what the education system has been set up for. You know, everybody says give President-elect Trump a chance. He's going to get his chance, Charles, starting Friday.
Yeah.
But when you look at this cabinet that he has proposed and put together, that you're going to say they're for America, you know, it's like the guy he put in front of the health administration.
Yeah.
Here's this guy, he was trading stocks with health companies. He would know what the company was. He bought a stock, run up the stock, the value of the company.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You know, I mean, America's free enterprise.
Yeah.
Okay? But you got to understand, every time one of these people make a move, somebody, you know, the average citizen loses.
Yeah, I think Martha Stewart. I think Martha Stewart went to jail over something like that, or at least, you know, maybe it was a.
Yes, she did.
Yeah.
She spent 6 months in prison over doing what this cabinet that President-elect Trump has selected.
Yeah.
I think about J.P. Morgan Chase, okay?
Yeah.
Everybody is familiar with J.P. Morgan Chase in America.
Yeah.
If you can remember 2007, 2008, you remember J.P. Morgan Chase.
Yeah.
They led the foreclosure of American homes.
Yep.
Okay? This was the reason why we had such housing crisis in America in 2000, you know, from 2007 to 2010.
Yeah.
Millions of Americans lost their homes. J.P. Morgan Chase profited from it, okay?
Yeah.
They created the landslide. President-elect Trump has taken the top 5 people that worked for J.P. Morgan Chase during that time and of current and have hired them into his cabinet. So you think we had a housing crisis from 2007 to
Yeah,
2010?
that's funny.
Okay, wake up 2017 to 2020.
Yeah.
See what's going to happen now. We're getting ready to recycle that housing crisis in America.
Well,
led by President-elect.
yeah, we know that the mortgage-backed security in the business, and it affects athletes, it affects the schools, you know, because if you don't have a house, well, how do you get your kids to school if you don't have a comfortable place to stay, or at least a decent place for them to have the chance to focus on their schoolwork, Big C? I also want to say this segment is sponsored by United Labor, guaranteed issue $100,000, up to $100,000 with no medical questions. We are also endorsed by the American Heart Association and the American Cancer Society. We're looking to hire over 1,000 licensed insurance brokers to go to work because we simply want to put people back to work. We also work with all of the unions under the AFL-CIO. And now, Big C, another thing that I'm thinking about when it comes to my mind again about this baseball, and no one says let's punish the owners. You know, if a kid gets in school, and oftentimes the parents are responsible for it because you're the parent of that child. Now, if an athlete can go through a drug test and they can't discover that they have a drug issue or whatever substance issue or HGH, but they're making tens of millions of dollars, you can't get a job making 30 grand without taking a urine test, Big C. Why is there never any pushback for the ownership that they'll punish the player after they make the owners millions, but they don't punish the ownership after they turn their blind eye on an athlete that they say is doing something wrong? Big C, your thoughts?
Because players are in abundance, Charles. You can recycle. It's almost like recycling. All you're doing is retooling. You're getting the next body up, the next warm one. And it's always been talked about that in sports.
Yeah.
You know, ownership, management. We can get somebody just like you, just as good, look just like you, whatever.
Yeah.
But the owner, you know, that's the guy that they can't replace. But he's the guy who's willing the money. And when you look at ownership in professional sports, Charles, you're talking about one of the elitist country clubs in America, okay?
Yeah.
That only a few are allowed in. And of those few, you protect each other, Charles, because you don't want any leakage. You don't want any baggage getting out about what you guys do and what you tolerate.
Yeah.
It's just like Ursay. You're going to tell me that the rest of the owners in the NFL didn't know Ursay was a drug addict, okay? That he didn't ride around with $20,000+ of Oxycontin.
Yeah.
You're going to tell me he sat in an owner's meeting and never popped a pill, never took a glass of alcohol. You're going to tell me he didn't do this thing. They're watching him, Charles. They sit there and they know who does what. They're buddies. But I'm not going
Yeah.
Then it looks bad on me. If I tell that Ursay is popping Oxycontin and drinking scotch in a winter football meeting,
yeah,
how does that look? People going to assume I'm doing the same thing.
Well, that's
so
interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. I even saw in a parallel when we talk about sports and politics, and it always comes up. We know President-elect Donald Trump. He actually owned the New Jersey Generals, and we talked about Jim Brown being a big advocate for opportunity for people, but especially people of color, young black boys, just like he was when he was born into the world, Big C. And I thought it's a little bit of twist of irony where Donald Trump is being insulting to John Lewis, but instead of having John Lewis ask on TV again his thoughts of the Donald Trump and his insulting behavior toward Don Lewis, they had Jim Brown there saying how he's going to honor the President-elect Donald Trump, who had some of the same policies that incarcerated young black men. Also, I believe his family member, his father, had one of the biggest housing discrimination lawsuits because he would not rent to black Americans, people that look like Jim Brown. But I thought it is ironic that they had Jim Brown there trying to defend what Donald Trump had said about John Lewis, Big C. I thought that was a little bit tasteless, and if anything, they should have another politician talking about what a politician thought of another politician, as opposed to a sports guy, to get the black people who love, Jim Brown to support Donald Trump. Your thoughts, Big C?
Well, Charlton, I'll throw Jim Brown on the back burner. The one I was most appalled with was Martin Luther King III, okay?
Yeah.
Here's a celebration of his father, of his dad's, holiday.
Yeah.
He is not out at any event celebrating his dad's legacy.
I noticed that.
Just like he didn't donate any of his dad's memorabilia to the African American Museum of Natural History in Washington, D.C.
No, he wants to sell it. He wants to sell it.
Just like he's been tied up in court, battling with his siblings for the right to sell his father's memorabilia so that he can turn a profit.
Yeah.
Not to go to the foundation or anything, so that he can put the money in his pocket. So I look at him going in to deal with President-elect because he's looking at profiteering, Charlton.
Yeah.
How can it benefit me? Not my culture, not my dad's legacy, but how can it benefit me? So Jim Brown is a secondary entity to the embarrassment that Martin Luther King III did to his dad's legacy on that day. Instead of going out, being a leader throughout America in a major event, celebrating his dad's legacy that so many people fought for and died for along with his dad. When you think about the great Stevie Wonder, who we've seen many a national anthems in all of America's arenas, who fought so hard to create this and make this a national holiday along with his, King's late wife, Coretta Scott King.
Yeah.
And they were total advocates, but here's his son being an embarrassment to his dad's legacy over money.
That's incredible, Big C. There's always talk about how much are they paying these guys to forget all the hatred that he had against black Americans. And I want my president to do well. I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican. I would like to see Donald Trump do well. But if he's going to ask for the same treatment that he did not give President Obama, why would anyone give him any favor when he, for about 4 years, he racially profiled, if you can say, the black community by saying that the first black president was illegitimate. He never said anything about his dealings with Russia and his financial dealings. That's why he won't show his taxes. That's why he loves Putin more than he loves the CIA. And that's why, how do you give favor to someone who won't even apologize to one of the last standing civil rights leader that marched on the Edmund Pettus Bridge with Dr. King to make it legal for even Jim Brown to vote? How do you sit there and not even admonish him for what he's done publicly? He never redacted anything he said. And even to this day, he still says, I'm going to get rid of Obamacare. That's the first thing I'm going to do. And when one of the pundits on CNN was asking his VP select, what does he think about, when they asked Pence, what does he think about the Donald Trump healthcare policy? He says, well, we're still working on it. Well, as an intelligent person, how do you get rid of something for 30 million Americans if you don't have something immediately to replace those who might be in the hospital in the next six weeks, Big C, or even 6 days? That's just irresponsible, Big C. Sometimes money helps people do things. And I want to say this segment is sponsored by United Labor and also One Life America Life Insurance. We're the leaders in the country when it comes to final expense. We're also looking to hire over 1,000 licensed insurance brokers. Tweet out to Charlton and Big C Sports on the iHeartRadio network. And again, we're trying to hire 1,000 brokers because we simply want to put people back to work. So, Big C, your thoughts again on how Donald Trump should at least come out and apologize for his bigotry and his sexism and all the hate speech that he had before people ask us to give him a chance. Your thoughts?
Well, we're talking, you're asking about rational thinking, aren't you?
Yep, that's true.
It's like a line that I remember years ago from the Sanford and Son show that was starred.
Red Fox, yeah.
And his son Lamont on the show, and he had a Hispanic friend. His name was Julio.
I remember.
He walked in one day and he said, "Here they are, the two clowns, Julio and damn Fulio."
Right.
And that's what I think about when I see the president-elect walk into a room.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that he doesn't have a great following, Johnson, because he was elected. Okay?
Yeah.
But after a while, you got to put something on other than just the same line, okay?
Yeah.
I remember growing up and we played these little 45 records, and you won't know what they were because they had little spindles in them, and we used to carry them from house to house. Everybody sit around and listen to them.
Yeah.
You grew up in the CD age.
I saw some 45. I was eating pizza off of them, Big C. I thought it was a pizza holder. I didn't know it was for something to play music on, Big C.
But you play these records so much, Charlton, that they became scratchy, okay?
Yeah.
And they didn't sound as good in 6 weeks like they did when you first bought them.
Yeah.
And 6 months later, you could hardly understand what they said. And the needles would wear out. Charlton would have to put a coin with a rubber band holding that coin just to put weight on that needle. And that's what I'm looking at with this presidency. I've heard the same things from day one of his campaign to what I hear today. We're going to do great things. This is a great guy. They go great. Everything is great.
Yeah.
America's always been great, Charlton. America has never not been a great country. Even with all the strife we've had, America in totality is a great country.
Oh, yeah.
Whether we're talking politics, whether we're talking athletics, whether we're just talking life and education, it's a great country. You have to show me how you're going to take what's great and make it greater. That means everything that's not good in America, and we know it's never a perfect union.
Yeah.
Everything that's not good will all of a sudden become good. You can't do that, Dolphin. That's called checks and balances, okay? There's things that balance out to make everything work in whatever society. When you look at a sporting event, you look at a football game, checks and balances are called officials, okay?
Yeah.
They're the ones that either make the game great or screw it up. That's checks and balances.
Yeah.
Players are going to do what they do on a basketball court, on a baseball diamond. When you get a bad call, you get a missed call, everybody's wanting to ride the officials. Things happen. That's what society is.
Yeah.
So for Donald Trump, he has to change his rhetoric. He has to grow up. When you talk about giving him a chance, America is giving him a chance to grow up.
Yeah.
Be a man. Talk eloquently. This is what we expect from the most powerful person in the free world. It's eloquent speech. And America's going to realize over the last 8 years, listen to an eloquent speaker.
Yeah.
A man of articulation and intelligence, being able to laminate anything that he spoke about.
Yeah.
He can speak about it with passion, compassion, strength, and direction and desire. This is what we haven't heard. It's okay being in a bar, being drunk. Trust me, I've had some moonshine.
Yeah, I understand.
And I've said things that I didn't remember, nor did I care about what I said.
Yeah, I understand.
And I see that a lot in the president-elect.
Yeah.
In the conversations that he has. He don't care.
Yeah.
What are you going to do to me? I'm rich. If you impeach me, I'm still rich.
Yeah, I think he's fun. It is fun. He does have a lot of moxie also, Big Z. I do want to say right around the world of the NBA last night, it was the Miami Heat over the Houston Rockets, and Goran Dragic had 21 points and 8 assists, and Wayne Ellington scored 18 points off the bench, and the Heat beat the Rockets 109-103. It was the Raptors. We loved Canada. We love Canada, Big C. It was the Raptors 119, the Nets 109. DeMar DeRozan had 36 points, 11 rebounds. Corey Joseph scored a career-high 33 points, and they beat the Brooklyn Nets. The Mavericks 99, the Bulls 98 in a close game there, and that was Wesley Matthews that hit a go-ahead three-pointer and winning that with 12 seconds left. The San Antonio Spurs, one of the greatest organizations in the history of sports. And in the NBA, they beat the Timberwolves 122-114 in San Antonio last night. Kawhi Leonard had 34 points at San Antonio, had a strong start by Minnesota, but overcame that to win it. And Leonard had his fourth straight 30-point game. When you look at him and guys like Westbrook and guys like Curry and Durant, there's always superstars in the league, and of course the great LeBron James. But when you look at San Antonio, they scored 950 points this season in the first half. That's the first time they've done it since Tim Duncan in 2003. So they're really on a roll right now, Big C, with San Antonio, even though they fly under the radar because they're never going to have the same kind of record that San Antonio has. They're mostly going to be right there snipping in the background. And I'm telling you, because they play good defense, they always have a chance to unseat or knock off somebody. And how do you deal with the LA Clippers? Chris Paul is injured again. He's out 6 to 8 weeks, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you talk about a hard luck team with the Clippers, Charlton, and their window of opportunity is basically...
It's like it's closed.
When you think about what this organization has been through, the past 3 years they've had an injury of some sort that has knocked them out. You know, you think about Blake Griffin breaking his hand, you think about Chris Paul a year ago injured himself, Charlton. Each year they come up with something that just hurts this organization.
Yeah.
And you know, they've always been second fiddle regardless of how good they've been in Los Angeles. Playing in the Lakers' house, Staples Center.
Yeah.
And so they just had a hard luck scenario down there. And with this Paul injury, Charlton, being out 6 to 8 weeks, you know, they'll drop all the way down to the 6th or 7th seed. So that means every series that they have in the playoffs, Charlton, they'll be on the road.
Yeah.
And we know what it's like being the road team in the playoffs in the NBA. You don't expect to win those series. You might look up here and there every other year. One of those teams do it, but the road team doesn't always fare well in these 5 and 7 game series in the NBA series.
Yeah, and we know it's always difficult to win. We look at some more games that happened on Tuesday. You had Miami 109, Houston 103, Toronto 119, Brooklyn 109, and Dallas 99, Chicago 98. Then we talked about San Antonio over Minnesota 122, 114, and Denver 127. The Lakers 121. Today's games, Indiana is at Sacramento tonight at 7:30. Memphis tipped off at Washington today. Portland at Charlotte. Toronto at Philadelphia. And New York at Boston, as well as Atlanta at Detroit. Milwaukee has a lot of good young players, and they're at Houston. Orlando's at New Orleans, and Oklahoma City's at Golden State over in the Bay Area. Should be a fantastic up and down the court game with OKC and Golden State. But Big C, just going back to close the door on this controversy. It's not really controversy. It's kind of like the old guy with Phil Jackson. Can't seem to get along with Carmelo Anthony, and there are people saying that his legs are gone and he can't shoot the ball anymore. He's still the most marquee guy they have on that team. But obviously, at some point in time, you got to point the finger at Phil Jackson. If you can't get along with your players while they're playing, who else is going to want to come to the Big Apple and play basketball, Big C, at Madison Square Garden?
Well, Charlton, realistically, over the past 5 or 6 years, nobody has really wanted to go to New York and play really over the last decade.
Yeah.
They haven't had anything there with that organization. And I think what has happened with Phil is that Phil has been he's been exposed. You know, people talked about, you know, this great knowledgeable guy at the game who could put together anything. People keep forgetting.
Yeah.
These great athletes made Phil. Phil didn't make the great athletes. You know, when Doug Collins was the coach of the Chicago Bulls,
yeah,
Phil Jackson walked in and the car was running. You know, it's like Barry Switzer in Dallas.
Yeah.
The car was already running. You know, it's like John Gruden in Tampa Bay. The car was running. All he had to do was just get in the seat.
Yeah.
Not do anything. You know, it was one of those self-driving vehicles. And that's what Phil inherited in Chicago. When he got to Chicago, you got to ask yourself, who did he put on the roster? They were already there.
Already there.
Collins, who is one of the greatest broadcasters now in sports theory.
Yeah.
You know, Doug put that together. Phil just had to drive it.
Yeah.
He got to L.A. I think this guy who everybody calls the logo, Jerry West,
yeah,
was the GM, you know, of the team, along with Miss Cupcake was an assistant.
Yeah.
The logo had already put the Lakers organization together. He went out and did the trade for Shaq. He had Shaq, what did he want? Gave it to him, okay?
Yeah.
He brought Shaq in. It was already there. Everybody was in place. Byron Scott, you know, Magic, but Kobe.
Yeah.
You know, Worthy, AC. These guys were there. Phil just had to sit down, let him play.
Yeah.
So, he gets to LA, he gets to New York. It's a whole new story. Phil, you got to put the team together now.
A little bit different.
And look at what he brought in. He went to Chicago, got 2 washups out of Chicago. Michael and Pippen wasn't there anymore, so he brought in Joaquin and Derek. None of them could play anymore. And a couple other players. So when it comes to buying the groceries, Phil doesn't have a clue. He might have been able to cook a meal, but he didn't buy the groceries.
When he was in LA, they have these gourmet chefs. So he didn't cook a lot of meal in LA, Big C, but obviously it's just a shame to see the organization. It's not like what happened in San Francisco, where the ownership tried to tear down their star players. It doesn't make any sense. How are you going to tear them down and then try to get trade value out of them, Big C? That doesn't make any sense.
Well, the thing is, Phil right now is trying to save face.
Yeah.
He's trying to save a legacy. He's not trying to save an organization. He's trying to save a legacy that I'm Phil Jackson and I can make anything work.
Yeah.
And it's been proven that I can't from management. I sit there as a coach and I got credit because, Phil, even when he was a player in the league, Charlton, his career ended with the Milwaukee Bucks. It's because he became a journeyman. When he was with the Knicks, he was a 6th or 7th man coming off the bench all the time. He was never a starter.
Yeah.
And when he did become a starter with the Milwaukee Bucks, people found that he was nobody.
Yeah.
He was just a role player. And playing in the league, you have to have some talent, but he was still just a role player.
Yeah.
And that's what he's found himself in management. Just a role player in management. He has no influence, Charlton. He can't go out there and dictate. His game is passed him by. We keep talking about teams recycling these old coaches.
Well, didn't they give him $12 million? Wouldn't you stay there and insult your players for $12 million too, Big C?
For $12 million, what's the percentage of the team?
Wow.
Dolan gave him the bank.
Yeah.
He gave him a percentage of the team and it's huge contract. But the thing is, when you can't relate to these new millennial players, Charlton, and that's what everybody's having a hard time. We look at the last 5 hires in the NFL.
Yeah.
All of these young coaches, the oldest was Doug Marrone, and he couldn't relate when he was coaching in Buffalo and had to leave. But 4 of the 5 hires, Charlton, have been young coaches in their early 30s. And so they're trying to get coaches that can relate to the new millennials. They're talking about Shanahan becoming the next coach in San Francisco. When the Falcon season is eventually over at whatever time, whether this week or the end.
I think the Falcons go to the Super Bowl. Just my opinion, Big C. Your thoughts?
So this is what you're looking at. You have to bring people in, Charlton, that can relate.
Yeah.
And when you look at the NBA, when you're drafting 18, 19-year-old kids, and you're telling, these kids whose grandfather is not as old as some of these guys in management and coaching.
Yeah.
And so their grandfathers have a hard time relating to them.
Yeah.
So this is what you have to look at in sports. I mean, sports is an evolutionary thing. It's constantly evolving. So you have to evolve the coaches just like you evolve the players. When was the last time any team in any sport, Charlton, went out and drafted a 35-year-old player? Drafted a 40-year-old player, okay?
Yeah, that's true.
But you're saying that you can go out and hire a 60-year-old coach, a 65-year-old coach, because he can teach, okay? That's not true.
You got to have people skills.
He knows the game, but he can't teach it to these people who are not willing to listen to his philosophy because that's not who they grew up with.
Yeah.
That's the type of game they grew up playing.
Yeah, that's true, Big C. And also talking about games, just want to give a little bit of attention to the college basketball tonight across the country. Cincinnati, they're actually playing, and they are a 14-point favorite over Temple. You have Alabama, your favorite team down south, Big C, but this is basketball, so you may not even watch it. Alabama by 12 over Missouri, and Indiana favored by 4 over Penn State. Florida State, they're favored by 5 over Notre Dame, and Wake Forest is favored by 1.5 over Miami. And then out the Midwest, we have Illinois State favored by 9.5 over Bradley. The great Ohio State favored by 1 over Nebraska, and Virginia Tech favored by 10 over Georgia Tech. Out west, we have Wyoming's favored by 2 over San Jose State. Nevada's favored by 13 over Air Force. Fresno State's by 3.5 over Colorado State. And in the Pac-12, we have Washington, a 1-point favorite over Colorado. But Big C, I want to just close out today's show as we talk a little bit about the NFL, and we know there's so many people looking forward to this championship weekend, the Final Four NFL style. And if you look at Aaron Rodgers versus the Atlanta Falcons, it's really more like Aaron Rodgers versus Dan Quinn's defenses, because at Seattle and this year Atlanta already beat Green Bay 33-32 in a high-scoring game down in the Georgia Dome. But Aaron Rodgers is 0-3 versus Dan Quinn's defense. Big C. I think that's a bigger stat than who's going to throw the ball for the most yardage. Your thoughts?
Well, Charles, in two of those games, I think they were called zebra games, all right?
Yeah.
There was some mystery calls made and not called in those games. So when you think about that, this is also different personnel than what Dan Quinn had when he was defensive coordinator in Seattle.
Yeah.
But that's what has to come into play. And you talked about the shootout that they had earlier in the season.
In October.
Green Bay was struggling
during
that time, okay?
Yeah.
They went, they were 1-4. During that time, on a losing streak.
Yeah.
But, since that point, Charlton, they turned it around. And you also got to look at, you said the game was 33-32?
Yeah.
That wasn't a dominant defense if they get up 32 points. You may win, but it wasn't a dominant defensive performance. And you got to look at Green Bay's defense since that time, Charlton. They've cut their point production in half. That's a huge difference when you're giving up half the points now that you were at that time, Charlton. So
yeah.
The defense is woken up in Green Bay. Plus the offense is playing better.
Yeah.
It's not a perfect offense, but it's playing much better. And when you look at Aaron Rodgers, who is unflappable, this is a quarterback that can throw the ball from any position at any spot on the field and put it on a rope.
Yeah.
He does something that no other quarterback can do, rather. But when you look at these two quarterbacks in the game, and when you're talking about defensive tangibles in that game,
yeah.
You basically know where Matt Ryan's going to be in the pocket, okay? He might slide a little to the left, a little to the right, but Aaron Rodgers, is this person that you don't know where he's going to be, and he can throw the ball to anybody. It's great, Atlanta has the advantage receiver-wise with Sanu and Jones, and these guys can play.
Yeah.
Got an excellent running game. But the defense is going to be the key in this game. We'll always talk about quarterbacks because that's the marquee.
That's the marquee thing, yeah.
Sells tickets in the NFL.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, in this game, Charlton, you have to ask which defense can rise to the occasion. Now, last week, Green Bay's defense, when they had to make the stops against Dallas,
yeah.
they did it. And Dallas is a very formidable offensive team, Charlton, throughout the season.
Yeah.
And just like Atlanta. But you also got to look. Atlanta had times during the season, Charlton, where they looked very pedestrian.
Yeah.
And when they looked pedestrian, their defense couldn't get the job done. They're going to be facing just as good an offensive line. They're going to face a better offensive line this week with Green Bay than what they faced with Seattle last week.
Yeah.
Seattle played 3 different rookies on their offensive line and still were in the game to a certain degree against this Atlanta defense.
Minus the callback kick returns, and the punt returns,
Yeah. If not for those callbacks, they were right there with these rookie offensive linemen. You got some nasty boys up there in Green Bay.
Well, I tell you, that's a great point you bring up, Big C. I just want to remind that after they were down 21-3, Green Bay was up 21-3 over Dallas because they had taken 3 weeks off. They were foolish when they rested everybody at the Philadelphia game and lost momentum. But after being down 21-3, they outscored Green Bay by the score 28-13, and that last 3 points came on that field goal, so it's really 28-10. They'd outscored them prior to the last 3 seconds of the game, Big C. No matter who we like, this is the kind of game that we like. I know Vegas has Atlanta as a 5-point favorite, and that doesn't mean anything when you have two teams that can throw the ball a lot. The over-under is 60. Okay, the last game was 33-32. So if my math is right, that's 65 points. They're expecting a lower scoring game this game when both teams are playing better offensively. So whether you like Las Vegas or not, it should be a fantastic game to watch. And then Big C, as we close out, I just want to go on the other side of the conference championship games. You look at New England, you look at Pittsburgh going in there. I think Pittsburgh's answering too many questions about what Brown did, and they could just focus on football. So I appreciate Tomlin saying, look, I already spoke on it. I'm not talking about it. I'm talking about the game. If you're not going to ask me about the game, don't ask me anything. Your thoughts on the way he's handling the media, Big C.
Well, Charlton, you and I have had this conversation many times on our program. What the hell does the media know about sports, okay?
Yeah.
You got all these reporters, and they want to talk about what they've already seen on television. They don't believe their lying eyes or their ears, okay?
Yeah.
They sit there and they watch what Brown did. Everybody saw it. Okay, he did it. Tomlin addressed it, and you still want to talk about it. It reminds me of a sideline reporter walking up to a coach. Okay, Coach, what are you going to do to get your team to play better defense? Well,
Yeah.
I'm going to cut a couple up and half.
Yeah.
The rest of them are motivated.
Yeah.
What else you want?
Yeah, that's funny.
You do something like that, they'll all be motivated. Obvious is the obvious when you're looking at a scenario.
Yeah.
Tomlin doesn't have time to worry about what Brown did last Sunday, okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
He's worried about what Brown is going to do this Sunday. That's the only thing on his mind. He's going to find the player. He's not going to tell the media what he finds, but everybody wants to know, but that's what he's done.
Yeah.
Okay? And so the important thing is getting his team as a whole prepared. Everybody's made comments on the team and in the media.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, this kid, Charlton, when you think about it, he was a 6th-round draft pick when the Steelers picked him up years ago.
Yeah.
All right? And over the last 4 years, he's been the best receiver in pro football. Almost 500 catches, almost 7,000 yards.
Wow.
Okay? In the last 5 years. But, everybody is so enamored by this thing that he did in the locker room. It's almost like Odell Beckham hitting a kicker's net, Charlton, with his helmet.
Yeah.
And that's the story of the game. Not Eli Manning throwing 3 interceptions. It's Odell Beckham's antics on the sideline.
Yeah.
Not the quarterback's inability to produce on the field. The story wasn't about Ben Roethlisberger's inability to get the Steelers into the end zone, okay?
Yeah.
On 7 trips inside the 25-yard line, but more about Antonio Brown, what he did after the game in the locker room as the coach is talking about not getting on social media. So reporters lose focus on what the game is about and what they should report about.
Yeah.
They become so much, as your president-elect will say, fake news.
Yeah.
Like tabloids at the grocery store.
Yeah.
I got to put the tabloid story up there instead of the real story of the game.
Well, I think about what happened with the New York Giants and their receivers, and there was more scrutiny over those guys than the kicker that beat up his wife over 20 times and had 911 call over 20 times, and they just act like that's flushed down the toilet. But maybe what's going on with the Giants organization is from above. It's not what the receivers did. But as we close out, I just want to say I appreciate the fact that Tomlin and Brown, they didn't throw each other under the bus the way Phil Jackson's trying to throw Carmelo Anthony under the bus. They came out and said, "Look, we already dealt with that, guys. Now we're going forward." And Brown says he likes his coach, and they respect Tomlin. That's what they like. They know what they're going to get from Tomlin. Yeah, he's going to tell you what he likes and what he doesn't like. At the end of the day, it's about what's good for the team. Big C, as we close out this show on a beautiful day, it is January the 18th, 2017. Have a big game coming up tonight for the Sacramento Kings as they're trying to get to the 8th seed in the Western Conference playoffs. And we know they're playing Indiana. They've always done well out in the Midwest. And then Golden State OKC is a big game in Oakland tonight over in the Bay Area. Just your thoughts on what you're looking forward to the most. We've had the baseball guys inducted into the Hall of Fame and making those announcements. But what's at the top of your mind tonight, Big C, now that Alabama football is getting ready for practice tomorrow, from what I understand, Big C?
You look at the NBA and the way that it's heating up.
Yeah.
Basketball is on a roll right now. You got Houston and Milwaukee tonight, two of the young, great scorers. In the NBA, you got the Greek Freak and James Harden.
Yeah.
Going to be doing battle tonight, Jonathan. But, when you think about this game, when we came out of the weekend with Golden State and Cleveland.
Yeah.
That's a great game. And to see Golden State just handle Cleveland at the level that they did, Jonathan. You talked about San Antonio and the most points that they scored.
Yeah.
After this point in the
Duncan.
season in the first half.
Yeah.
And you look at the demise somewhat of the Los Angeles Clippers. Here's a team that at one point they were the hottest team in the NBA.
Yeah.
The first couple of weeks of the season.
Yeah, they were.
And now they're falling on hard times, Jonathan. But, sports is such a up and down thing when you look at it. The dominance era in sports, especially college basketball, when you always knew who was going to be number one. Now you got a team in the Southwest being number one in Baylor.
Yeah.
So you never know where it's going to go, but it's great for the fans across the country. I want to congratulate all the guys who made it into the Hall of Fame today: Rodriguez, Raines, and Bagwell.
Yeah.
Three great, deserving former baseball players, but also the sports writers. Grow up. That's what I want to say more than anything else to all the sports reporters out there, and we're included in that, John.
Yeah.
We're part of that fraternity. Grow up. Be grown men. Don't deal with these childish antics first one with this tabloidism. Be honest. Be fair. Tell the truth. If somebody is deserving of something, speak about it. But don't sit there and say that they hurt the integrity of a game. Because if they were destroying the integrity of a game, why did you let them play the game?
Big C, you always close out the way it should be done, just like the rain. You're flowing, Big C, you're flowing. I also want to say every Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time, worldwide, follow Charlton and Big C Sports on the iHeartRadio network, the #1 network in the country, and also Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe. And as we always tell you, there's never any room for domestic violence. No woman should ever have to go through that garbage. If you know anyone in trouble, just call 911, because no woman should ever have to deal with that garbage all on her own. Okay, and then we always want to say, no matter what you're going through, you got to keep swimming. You got to keep swinging the bat. Hopefully we'll get Barry Bonds and Clemens in the Hall of Fame. But I always want to say, every Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time worldwide, follow Charlton and Big C Sports on the iHeartRadio network. And as we always love to say, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.